Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
So since we're talking about pricing, right now in past podcasts, we've been talking about just how the younger generation is having difficulties purchasing a home, right? And so when you look at the interest rates and you look at housing and you look at, first time buyers and things like that, the interest rates have been going up. And mortgage rates and the cost of living has been squeezing, especially first-time home buyers. In fact, there was a statistic that came out recently that talked about the fact that the first-time home buyer for the first time in American history is over 40 years old right now.
That's incredible.
So I just wanted to get your perspective because one of the things we talk about current events, but we also talk about economic issues on this channel. So tell me what you're thinking along these lines.
Well, I don't know. How old were you, Len, when you bought your first house?
I was 24.
Okay, I was 21. So we were right around the same age. And you did that. So respectively, you did that. You did that at a younger age than I did. Because if you know what I mean? Because you're when things you're doing, you know what I'm talking about? That phenomenon. Like people are slower today than they were back then.
But I think that's what it makes it more impressive that you bought your first house at 21 because, housing prices were a lot cheaper when I first got into the market than when you got into the market. And so, that's way more impressive. So
I had two things going for me. It was 2001.
Okay. Good point.
Okay.
Timing
it was 2001. Great. Timing was good. And I made good money. I was making really good money in IT. So I think those all came together. In fact, it was my brother and I, my younger brother and I, we qualified it for ourselves. We didn't have a cosigner or nothing. It was just me and my younger brother, David. We did that.
And so isn't that crazy? Like that could never happen today.
No, you couldn't do that today. You couldn't. Here's the conundrum that I think that we've gotten ourselves into. A lot of people got used to, in the early 2000s, like we were just saying, anybody can get a house and that whole mortgage thing. I don't think we ever really recovered from that. Then you had a really good market of prosperity, which you did. But then you had this point where just all of a sudden COVID happens and home prices just explode because the demand exploded. The market responded. But the reason why it did that is because money was so cheap. What you had like 2%, 3% interest rates. I mean, car dealers were giving you cars for no interest for 2 years or something like that. It was just absolutely bonkers. And you were getting cheap money. And what happened was a lot of people bought those houses. And now you have all those people that bought those houses and you would expect, okay, interest rates stay high, prices go down, right? The prices aren't going down because nobody wants to get out of their 2 and 3% mortgage. Because if you go and get a HELOC or you go and do a poll or anything like that, you're going to get it at today's rate or refi, and rates are nasty because what's the age old saying? If you get a high rate, you can what? We can always refinance, right? We can always refinance. Well, these people can't refinance now like you saw. You saw so much refinance and so much churn during the COVID era where now that inventory is locked up. Couple that with the fact that to build houses today is absolutely astronomically expensive. Inflation's there. And then the last linchpin, baby boomers own 2 and 3 houses and they ain't letting go of nothing. Nothing. Not a dang thing. So if you're a baby boomer or older Gen X, right? Even someone like me who's 44, if you bought your first house when you're 21, you're like 4 years away from paying that sucker off. And that interest rate was cheaper than it is today. You ain't making any moves on that. And you don't have to. You're like, bro, I got a house. I'm comfortable. Like, for example, the neighborhood I live in, I'm like, dang, these people came up. They bought these houses at 250, 300 in the mid 90s. They're all worth 1.2, 1.3 now. They came up and guess what? Those property values doubled or went up by 50% in COVID alone. So I think those dynamics are creating it coupled with the fact that wages have been stagnant and the economy is massively changing with the AI influx and all that. It's very difficult to get your hands on something like that unless you are making $250 or more a year. Because to get in it, let's say to buy an $850,000 house, Len, what does that get you in Southern California? $850,000. What does that get you?
$850,000 house in Southern California. That's going to get you about 2,000 square feet, but no land.
And think about that. That's like right around the cutoff for non-jumbo. Right? Like I remember I had my last loan I got, it was like 380 and that was considered a jumbo or something like that. It was a jumbo loan. That was crazy, right? And I was like, dude, you 830 or something is the 835 is the jumbo cutoff. So You're going to go drop that and get 2,000 square foot land. 25 years ago, $850,000. What did that get you in Southern California?
Oh my goodness. I mean, you can pretty much get some land and,
Right?
5-bedroom house, 3,000 to 4,500 square feet. Easy.
Right?
Pool in the back, landscaping and everything.
In order to do 850 and get 20% down, so you have no PMI, right? You're financing what, 700,000 or something like that. If you put 20% down, your payment's still $6,000-$7,000 a month.
Exactly.
Woo!
Exactly. Yeah, and when you look at all of the other expenses, that's just the sticker price for the house. When you take into account, potential Mello-Roos, when you look at HOAs, when you look at property taxes, when you look at all the other expenses that go along with it, that's just the beginning.
The entry point now is 200 to 250. If you're not making $200 to $250,000 a year, you can't buy a house anymore now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, who's paying that out of college?
Nobody. And that's the hard part, is that the only way that things will change is the price for housing has to dramatically decrease. But I've never seen a time period where that's ever happened.
Never.
Or interest rates have to go down. And because of the inflationary pressures, there's no way for that to happen. And so it's just becoming increasingly more difficult for people. So what's going to end up happening is people are going to, if they want to have a home, they're going to have to move into states that, that doesn't have a real population increase, where you don't have a lot of industry. And the problem is that if you don't have a lot of industry, there's not a lot of jobs. So if you had a remote type of job where you could still get paid and move somewhere where you wanted, that would be great. And I think, to your point earlier, that's what COVID did. I think it artificially shifted the economy, because a lot of people were able to move to different parts of the country, still carry the same income, so if they go from an urban place like a New York or Los Angeles, they move to a more rural place like an Ohio or, Michigan, in some parts where the prices are significantly lower, they could still garner the wages. But then once people said, hey, listen, you need to come back to the office, and now that allows them to have less mobility, people are struggling. People are struggling. And the other point that I wanted to make to piggyback on your point is that a lot of times when you own a home, you have equity built in. So if you want to go from one place to another, you can take that equity, put that as a down payment for your new house. Whereas a person coming in as a first time home buyer, they're having to save up the money. And so with lack of affordability, the ability to save is decreased significantly. So therefore it leaves them limited options. So people that are under 35 right now in today's market with increased prices and increased interest rates are screwed right now, unless you're making, like you said, 250 and above. So the only way to really do that is to become an entrepreneur, get into sales, or put yourself in a position where you start to rise up in an industry that can pay you that. If you decide to go into social services, if you decide to go into becoming a public servant, you might as well, if you're under 35, just either combine incomes with somebody else who's doing that. Otherwise, just rent. Or there's no other way.
Become an electrician or a plumber or trades. Trades are making more than MBAs now.
Yeah, absolutely.
For no college commitment.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question then. Do you think, put your tinfoil hat on for me for a little bit, just a little bit.
Okay.
COVID was a population control. And I'm not necessarily saying the people passing away from it, God bless them. But I'm talking about population control, because it accelerated people moving around. Because realistically, if you go back and you look at history, when you have people concentrated in areas, weird stuff happens, right? Meaning nature has a way of population controlling. Like, for example, when you look at Pericles, right? When Pericles was at war with the Trojans, right? Or I think it's the Greeks or one of those two. Anyways, Pericles, he's Greek. I think he is. Yeah, he's Greek. Mm-hmm. And they were at war with the Spartans, not the Trojans. And and then all of a sudden
they rode in with the Trojan horse. Yes.
No, not that. Pericles brought everybody in to the city walls and said, "Hey, we'll just stay in the walls, and we're not going to fight. We don't have to do that." And then what happened?
Okay, I know what you're talking about now.
Pericles brought everybody in, and everybody was concentrated, and all of a sudden, disease and all that stuff happened. Right now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen today, but how much can our sanitation systems handle if we can start concentrating? Because you look at the amount of people that are densely populated in those areas like LA, New York, the coastal stuff. That's the majority of people live there, right? So do you think COVID was a way to spread people, to forcibly spread people out? And at the same time, it's going to kill some people too. I mean, I know it's a little wacky to do, but think about it. It kind of plugs in with the AI narrative of remote work and all that, because realistically, the more AI comes on and the more jobs the AI creates, I think a lot of those jobs outside of the tradesmen building data and compute power, you're going to see a lot of remote work. I think the remote work is going to become extremely more, not just it's popular, but more relevant just simply because of the way the world is going with technology. What do you think about that? Little tinfoil hat before we transition here a little bit.
Okay. So I think being able to look back gives relevance to that theory. I don't believe that the way in which COVID, just became a pandemic, I don't think they had that in mind, because when you look at Netflix and when you look at Zoom, those stocks just took off like a rocket ship. And I remember I think you had some of the Netflix and Zoom. I knew it was one of those. And so anyway, I don't think, because the reason why I say that I don't think that's the case, because things have shifted back where now people are expected to be at the workplace. And so people aren't working as remotely. I think if that were done on purpose, my opinion, I think that people would have been, at least coerced or encouraged greatly from the governmental systems to the CEOs to say, hey, listen, let's go to this remote workplace. Let's incentivize people because, you have less traffic that's driving from one place to another, and you virtue signal the reasons why it's good, work-life balance. You can stay at home and be with your kids and stuff like that. But because people went back to work, because I think one of the unintended consequences was this whole idea of cabin fever and the rise in mental health challenges, because there's more cases of depression than ever before. There's a higher concentration of anxiety than ever before. So even if that were rationale to get people to spread out, I think the negative consequences outweighed that. So that's just my theory, just, off the cuff, to answer your question.
Do you think it was rehearsed, or do you think it was just plain old simple human chaotic BS?
I think
we don't know what's going to happen, but lock everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a bunch of people making decisions that led to that, and everybody just kind of followed. And
I think people took advantage of a chaotic situation to see how far they could push the envelope. I believe that. So what I believe, in other words, is that, how can you control a population to tell them what to do through fear? Because there was about a 6-month period where you couldn't walk out of your house without a mask on. So, traffic shut down. The earth was able to, get green again because there wasn't a lot of this smog pollution and stuff like that. So I'm wondering to what degree they were moving levers when the situation took place to see how far they could control people, because all you have to do is say, oh, look, we have XYZ pandemic, and stop going here and stop going there. Stop taking planes, trains, and automobiles. Stay in your homes, because if you walk out, you could catch the next deadly virus. So I think population control is always a lever for people in power to exercise. But I don't think they planned it. I think they allowed whatever was going on in Wuhan to get out there. So with that, Chris, man, it's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. What are your last parting words before we bid farewell to our audience?
Go USA, baby.
Love it, man. Well, hey, with that, if you like our information, subscribe. We always want to hear your feedback in the comment section as well. Till then, everybody, be safe. Take care.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, Planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.